It's a sort of homecoming for Hisashi Niimoto every time he visits Taiwan. The 93-year-old is one of an estimated 200,000 Japanese known as Wansei, meaning born in Taiwan, specifically during imperial rule from 1895 to 1945. Then, as many as 1 in 3 Taipei residents were Japanese. Education was in Japanese, and districts were modeled after Japan's. This is where Mr. Niimoto lived in Taipei, in what is today's Zhongjiang district. The traditional wooden houses still standing once served as dormitories for Japanese civil servants. And this was Mr. Niimoto's city home, now restored and turned into a cafe. After Japan surrendered, ending World War II, the Wansei had to leave the lives they built here and return to Japan.
全部覚えてるけど、とにかく私は中学1年ですから身長がこのぐらいでちょうど良かったんですけれど、今これ頭ぶつかっちゃうぞ。だから天井もねずっと高いと思ったんだけど。
Mr. Niimoto's old home lay in ruins for years. These colonial-era houses were requisitioned after their Japanese owners left. But some were later abandoned and others razed. I visited Mr. Niimoto in Tokyo, where he has been living since his family was forced to leave Taiwan. Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Mr. Niimoto's family was allowed to bring back only a case and a bag of belongings each. One of the most precious items, their photo albums. It's a treasure trove narrating their family history and the era of Japanese colonization. His grandfather, Shikanosuke, known for his trademark straw slippers, arrived in 1896 to oversee the building of the local railway, which grew to power Taiwan's economic development. Mr. Niimoto's father, Yatsuo, started a sugarcane plantation in Mado in Tainan as an employee of Meiji, then a new sugar manufacturer. Taiwan's sugar industry modernized and flourished during the colonial era, and Japanese firms came to dominate the market.
これ私の小さい時代、これ姉で。
In school, Mr. Niimoto made lifelong friendships with his Taiwanese classmates. But what he remembers most vividly are the days leading up to departure.
45年の5月31日、台北絨毯爆撃があった。淡水川の向こう側にね、高射砲陣地があって、それの地下壕掘りの動員になって、総督の方に爆弾が落っこってね、ズドーンズドーンと音が聞こえてきて、初めて防空壕に入れてくれたん。それで最後の人が200名防空壕に入って蓋を閉めた途端に防空壕の入り口に500キロの爆弾が落っこって。
Mr. Niimoto says the blast left a 20-meter deep crater.
先生のところに行ってね、兵隊にしてくださいって言ったぐらい軍国少年だったから。
But shortly after, he heard that Japan lost the war.
46年ですかの2月に台湾の日本人は全部引き上げるという命令が来たわけですが、父は やっぱり会社の VIP だったもんで蒋介石の大陸からの人に事業を受け継ぐために引き上げさせてくれなかったわけ。お前は先に帰れと。
Mr. Niimoto and his family resettled in this very house, which his grandfather bought and picked up the pieces, now as outsiders in Japan.
父が帰ってくるまではね、お金がないんで、母はね、受産所っていうところで洋裁して、姉は昭和ゴムっていうところに勤めて、それで私は進駐軍のところにアルバイトして、甘いものがないのが一番苦しかった。
Their story in Taiwan ended there, kept alive only in memories. But my story was just beginning. My mother was a Wansei. She was my hero, but I never cared much about her life before she had me. It was only after her death, when I saw my mother's birthplace on the family registry with a Taipei address, that reality hit. My mom was gone, and I knew nearly nothing about her early life. Just that her brother, who was in the Navy, died in World War II. And her world changed after our family was forced to leave Taiwan with hardly anything when she was 11. I decided it was time to revisit this part of my family history. I've just landed in Taiwan's international airport from Tokyo. I'm here to explore my route and Japan-Taiwan relationship as Japan colonized Taiwan for 50 years. Relics of Imperial Japan live on in Taiwan, though some are crumbling as time passes. I retraced my family's footsteps based on the few clues I had. My mother's birth certificate showed this was where she lived. She had described a garden with a stream and fruit trees, but an apartment block now stands. It was a dead end. Her elementary school, now renamed, was closed for the weekend. Mr. Niimoto told me he passed by it every day on his way to school in Taipei. It accepted only Japanese children then and was affluent enough to have a swimming pool. My mother was most likely born here, like many Wansei, at the National Taiwan University Hospital, built near the start of Japan's colonization. I was accompanied during my visit by Yoshifumi Katakura, a longtime resident of Taiwan and expert on its Japanese legacy.
何かにちょっと似てますよね、これ。東京駅の丸の内似てますよね。
Mr. Katakura is not a descendant of Wansei, but he was fascinated by Taiwan's colonial legacy and relocated here.
30年ぐらい前ですけど、日本語ができる人がたくさんいたんですよね。これどういうことかっていうと、日本統治時代は日本語で教育をしていましたから、その日本語を常用できるお年寄りが、当時まだ60歳とか70歳ぐらいの人たちがもう日本語ペラペラなんですよね。
Once among the largest and most modern hospitals in the region, there were fears that scientific breakthroughs made here would be lost after World War II.
で日本は戦争に負けて引き上げることになる、つまり先生たちは引き上げてしまうわけですね。ところがその時に台湾にいた若き台湾の学生たちがその先生たちが残していった資料やデータを残して発展させていった。
I made my way to Taiwan's presidential office building, completed in 1919. Once the headquarters of the Japanese colonial administration, it was the final clue I had. This is the building where my grandfather used to work during Japan's period of occupation. His name was Gensuke Fujiyama, and he was with the Commerce Department of what was then called the Governor General's Office. We hear that he traveled often to the Philippines to study raw material such as hemp. My grandfather saw a huge change in his fortunes after the war, losing his son, his job, and his home in quick succession. Returning to Japan, I was told my family often moved around, sometimes staying with relatives. As I pondered my next steps on a trail gone cold, another daughter of Wansei was here in Taipei, having made much more headway in tracing her roots. I'm here at Taipei Main Station to fast-track my search for clues about my family history elsewhere on the island. With me is Yuri Ito. We are both children of Wansei, the term used to describe Japanese born in Taiwan during colonization. She has spent a good 10 years in and out of Taiwan, hoping to open a window into the life of her ancestors. That's how she met volunteer guide Wan Chen-an. He is part of a network of Taiwanese who have become her friends and strongest supporters, and they have taken me into the fold, tracking down the area where my ancestor arrived, here in northeastern Taiwan. I hear that it's often foggy and rainy here in Keelung. This is Keelung Port, and I've been hearing that this is where my grandfather landed in 1927. And after Japan lost World War II, the whole family left from this port back to Japan. Beneath the seemingly calm waters surrounding Keelung lies a stormy history. A center for trade for centuries, it was fought over by foreign powers, including the Spanish and Dutch. In 1895, a Japanese prince and his fleet made their way here. Close to the coast, a memorial was erected to mark the spot where Japan's colonial journey began. And with that, Miss Ito's family history in Taiwan.
私の曽祖父、母方の母のなんていうのかな、お父さんですねが当時北白川のお家の家来をしていて、なんか会計か何かを預かっていたそうですけれども、それで宮様がこちらに来られることが決まった時に一緒に行きたいと一緒にここまでやってきました。
In a reversal of fortunes, the memorial was replaced by one commemorating anti-Japan resistance.
1945年，那个台湾光复以后，这个纪念碑已经被毁掉了。直到30年后，也就是1975年，才有重新设立一个新的纪念碑。然后据说日治时期的纪念碑的碑体，据说藏在这个里面。
Mr. Huang, a full-time teacher, has been helping Wansei and their descendants to trace their heritage for 20 years.
我知道很多日本人来台湾，因此我试着帮他们找一些资料，并且跟他们保持联系，又可以帮助日本人寻根，我是觉得很有意义的事情。
This nearly 100-year-old home, owned by Miss Ito's maternal grandfather in Taipei, is where her own journey began. It had housed generations of her family, but it was vacated after World War II ended. Miss Ito's parents left with her children in tow in 1947. She was born after they returned to Japan. The family thought the house was gone until Miss Ito tracked it down using Google Street View in 2015. It was approved for preservation in 2023, but the structure remains precarious.
血を見たのは7回目、8回目ですかね。この家を見つけた時点では人が住んでらして、そしてその2年後にいられたのかな。それでその頃もまだちゃんとしてたんです。
As we gathered outside, another surprise was just around the corner.
来看一下。
Neighbor Aimei Lai, a painter, has lived here for 35 years. She had immortalized Miss Ito's family home and its old banyan tree, once beloved by people here.
我盖的时候，这边也是日本宿舍。哦。
For now, the house stands, a symbol of how Taiwan's colonial past endures, yet is at the mercy of the ravages of time. It's a step back in time here at a former Japanese residence in Da'an district, known as Showacho then. I'm with expert Huan Chi-hui, who fought and succeeded in conserving this very house.
台北帝大の生物学の、学者が最初に、この家を建てたんですけれども、戦後しばらくは空き家ばっかりだったんですね。しかし49年ですね、大陸の国境内戦で100万人以上ですね、台湾にやってきたんです。
じゃあその人たちがこの空き家に入って、はい、しばらく暮らしたっていうことですか？
はい、このエリアは多くは台北帝大の先生たちの私有財産ですので、その教職員たちがここをですね、宿舎として使ってきました。
Many houses became empty again after their new occupants died. It was only in recent decades that some were repurposed.
入札制度で作って修復で、またこう修復した後入ってきて経営する際に毎月家賃を払うと、家がこう人が入っているので傷まない。
Other houses, though, are left to decay or lost. Professor Huan says the home Miss Ito's father grew up in was demolished despite a petition to preserve it.
建築士の意味があるとか、家族の歴史だけではなく、台湾そして台北市が歩んできた歴史の中の欠けてはいけない1ページ。
Century-old Keelung Presbyterian Church, now a historical site, was built originally for the Japanese and wealthy local merchants. And it's here where Miss Ito's father Ken and mother Fukuko, both Wansei, got married in 1941. She's on a mission now to look for more pieces of her heritage, specifically membership records unearthed by the priest for her. It isn't much, but it's another part of history recovered. Miss Ito's hope had been to turn her family home into a museum for materials they owned and gathered. Now she loans and gives away family treasures, like the woodblock paintings by her grand uncle Koshiro Onchi, regarded as the father of abstract Japanese art. They were left behind in Taiwan when he visited. But the professor who took over their home later sent their belongings to them.
私たちこの記念館はね、台湾の美術のこの歴史をちょっと、詳しいところに探して、恩師さんはもうプリンティングな版画もやってるだから、伊藤さんというあって探してあった。
Miss Ito's journey to search for her roots came full circle in a sense. The gallery had old photographs of her great-grandfather on the expedition to colonize Taiwan. Surrounded by curious visitors, she feels she has achieved her dream of painting a picture of that period of history.
Wow.
Not just for her family, but also for the Taiwanese.
おじやら祖母たちにとってすごいやっぱり嬉しいことだったろうなと思います。でそれに少しでも尽力できたことがこう心に響きますね。もう全てを捨てて引き上げたわけですからね。
Japan's colonial experiment in Taiwan ended 80 years ago, but its legacy remains visible on the island.
That's a Japanese home too.
And in the hearts of many Wansei and their descendants.
For Japan, Taiwan was its first colony, an island that ruled for 50 years. Streets were renamed, schools reshaped, and even identities rewritten. Many Japanese look back on this period fondly, but what about the Taiwanese? Well, I'm here with our Taipei correspondent, Victoria Jen, who's about to find out.
Thanks, Mitch. Now, it's clearly a chapter that still sparks a lot of emotions here. Some remember progress, while others remember pain. I'll be speaking with Taiwanese whose lives were shaped by Japan's rule to see how deep that legacy runs.
Taiwan rose from the ashes of war, rebuilding itself in a matter of decades after Japan's surrender. Strategically vital to Japan's coastal defense, the island suffered devastating airstrikes close to the end of World War II. Official data showed that nearly 6,000 people were killed, buildings were flattened, and infrastructure destroyed.
Keelung wasn't just another port during World War II. It was actually a major military command center for the Japanese Empire. This made it a target for the Allied forces. It was one of the most bombed cities in Taiwan, hit more than 50 times in air raids. Even today, you can see traces of war tucked between these hills.
This bunker was built by the Japanese and used as a command center. Today, it serves as a reminder of how deeply the former colony was caught in the crosshairs of war. A war that altered the course of history and changed lives. Like that of Yang Fuchen, one of more than 200,000 Taiwanese who served in the Imperial Japanese Army. Now 104 years old, Mr. Yang still remembers the day he chose to enlist.
我可能当时当时嘛是讲，我说我是嘛是认为讲是日本国民，日本国民迄当时咧战争或者嘛大嘛参加迄当时啊。
Yang was barely 21 when he signed up in 1943. He never fought on the front lines. He was sent to Singapore, where he organized supplies for Japan's vast military network. There, he was treated like any other Japanese soldier.
金库下正侪钱，咱买物件，金库锁匙嘛拢交我啊，是啥信任我啦？因为如果认为讲你是台湾人，迄当时嘛认为讲你是日本人啊，当时我嘛拢改名日本籍了，日本名去。
He says Japan's surrender took him by surprise. Mr. Yang was offered a life in Tokyo by his commander, but he chose to return home to a very different Taiwan.
看到这中国这出来这人个对这乱来，他们有啦，迄当时我在抢呢，马上有军队啊对党在抢呢，发生这228事件，228事件了后，即嘛就要讨大陆的一堆来咧，遐就乱台乱去啦。
For Mr. Yang, the shock of betrayal ran deep. Taiwan's government has since apologized, but not before Mr. Yang spent 7 years in prison during the White Terror, a period of political repression. In Taiwan, colonization and war are carved into history, but shaped by personal narratives. Mr. Yang looks back on Japan's occupation fondly.
我嘛讲，迄当时嘛要这国民党的统治嘛做对战吼，这嘛靠得关心。
But largely forgotten are an estimated 30,000 Taiwanese soldiers who never returned home, victims of battle or disease in distant lands. Memories of them are buried deep in the hearts of the bereaved who continue to grieve.
Here in Yokohama, a memorial was erected in April 2025 for Taiwanese soldiers who died while serving in the Japanese military during World War II. It's at a Buddhist temple called Shinshoji. It was in fact proposed by a Taiwanese soldier who was attached to a Japanese unit and later taken prisoner.
Masao Go was one of the youngest to serve in the Japanese military during World War II. The sole survivor in his unit, as far as he knows. Now 98 years old, he says that never stopped weighing on his heart.
日本人の作った旧軍隊の日本人の慰霊があちこちあるわけね。ところが台湾人の戦没者慰霊はね、ないわけだ。で、噂で聞いているのは、奥多摩の産地があるのは聞いていたけど、まだ僕は見てなかったんだね。どっかに建てたいという希望が持っておりましたね。
Young Masao was sent to Tokyo by his father in 1941 to attend junior high, where he went by the name Masao Oyama. Daily reports of Japan's military success inspired him to enroll in a military training school. He was 16 and the only Taiwanese.
空襲が始まって B-29 が 東から来て筑波山に来たらすぐ南の方の東京行っちゃうねぐらいだわね。林の中で隠さなきゃならない。だから訓練にならないのよ。訓練にならないのにさ、北朝鮮に船体が動けと。
Using this very glider for training, he set his sights on becoming a suicide pilot, as his feelings of patriotism and sacrifice grew.
速度決めるとね、時速180キロなんだよ。180。今新幹線の半分。必ずこれを落とされると思うんだよ。特攻隊に選んだのは長男を外したと。でこの選ばれた連中はね、8月5日終戦の前の10日目に。
After Japan surrendered, Mr. Masao says he was taken hostage by the Soviet army and transported to a labor camp in what is now Kazakhstan. 37,000 soldiers from the Japanese army were subjected to forced labor in Kazakhstan, according to Japan's health ministry. 1,500 of them died and were laid to rest by their comrades. Mr. Masao passed himself off as Japanese on his Soviet records. As a Taiwanese who fought for Japan, he feared persecution by the post-war government if he was sent to Taiwan on his release.
ありがとうございます。
Mr. Masao was repatriated to Japan in 1947 in the midst of post-war rebuilding. He rose to become chairman of a credit union in Yokohama's Chinatown. But for nearly 20 years, he dared not set foot in Taiwan. He reunited with his siblings and met his youngest brother for the first time, only when they were all grown up. Here in Shinshoji Temple, its chief abbot prays for the war dead, but like most Japanese, he did not know about the role of Taiwanese soldiers until Mr. Masao approached him about erecting a memorial in December 2024.
日本のためにっていうね、本当に純粋な気持ちで戦っていただいたことに対してね、やっぱり感謝の気持ちですね。で、それから忘れないということですね。日本の教育の中ではそういうものがなかったということですね。ですからないから余計ね、五山のこういう日をね早く作って一般の人にどんどん理解してもらいたいなっていうのがありましたね。はい。
The abbot hosted a grand ceremony in July, fulfilling Mr. Masao's long-held wish. In front of the cenotaph, they held a consecration ritual. Joining them to honor the memory of the war dead were members of Japan's legislature, as well as the Taiwanese community in Yokohama. The event drew the attention of local media, sparking an awakening.
いや、全く知らなかったですよね。たくさんの方々が日本のために日本兵として戦って、そして命を落とされたということを知ってびっくりいたしました。
For the Taiwanese, it was a moment of recognition that was long overdue.
女房のお父さんも日本で兵隊入ったでしょ、軍人。で、入ってからすぐ太陽戦争終わったんですけど。
For Mr. Masao, his mission is completed.
いずれはここで年に1回集まりがあるのではないかと私は想像しております。何か所の主催で行われることを期待しておるし、実現すると思いますのでありがたいと思います。
Engraved on the cenotaph are words that come from his heart, a promise to his fallen comrades that their sacrifice will be remembered eternally, and a salute to both territories that raised him.
At Taipei Gyokulan Care Center, songs from the colonial era echo through the classroom. Here, elderly Taiwanese who grew up under Japanese rule speak freely, read, or even sing in Japanese. For Xie Jingyi, who also goes by the name of Shizuko Ano, Japanese is the first language she ever learned.
我们就是日本人啦，但是他其实也有被差别啦，台湾人啊，但是我没有那种感觉，因为大家都以为我是日本人。
94-year-old Miss Xie is one of many Taiwanese at this elder care center who still speaks Japanese at home. Some say it comes more naturally to them than Mandarin.
5岁呢，我有一个女朋友，也是5岁，日本人，7岁到17岁，我是日本人，日本护照嘛。第2次大战结束，变成中国人。
To 97-year-old Liu Longmao, whose Japanese name is Shigeru Miyagawa, his whole identity was rewritten after Japan's surrender.
刚做光复的时候，那时候是大家都说啊，回到祖国了什么的，就这样人讲啊。后来看到那个中国的那个军队来了啊，看到就很失望。较乱嘛，比较乱一点嘛，讲好当时对吧？比较乱一点。
日本
那个日本时代，我们好像治安也比较好。
日本人对我们很好，所以呢，他后来变成中国人，我不喜欢，我还是喜欢日本人。
可以讲一下为什么吗？
因为日本人对贫穷人的那个帮忙。现在呢，我父母在新竹最有钱，以前是最贫穷，现在在新竹最有钱。
Mr. Liu's daughter recalls her father telling her he volunteered to join the military near the end of the war, and how he was prepared to lay down his life to defend the colony.
所以爸爸说，他就是拿着一根竹竿，要跟美军的枪来对，他都愿意的。因为那时候日本已经弹尽援绝了，所以他是很爱日本。
To some, colonization brought about progress and prosperity. But it wasn't always benign. There were also those who remembered it as a period of control, repression, and even violence. Japan treated the island as a subordinate territory, and uprisings were brutally suppressed. The 1915 Tabani incident was one of the biggest armed revolts by Taiwanese Han and Aboriginals against Japanese rule in the territory. Thousands were reportedly killed. Nearly 2,000 were arrested, with close to 100 executed, according to official data.
对于台湾老百姓来讲，那当然是一个，就当地人来讲，当然是一个劫难。对，但是一个压迫。但是呢，就从台湾的经济发展来讲，它可能又有一些正面的，所以我觉得可能是很难，就是很清楚的切割，到底是压迫的比较大，还是进步的比较大。
Fast forward to modern-day Taipei, and few recall firsthand the period when Japan occupied the island. For those who do, their memories have long been tinted by the passage of time.
但是后来中华民国政府到台湾以后，
日本政府以前压迫台湾的那一部分，很多还是继续啊。比如说你外省人跟本省人，那本省人在底层，而且就经过一段白色恐怖。那我想很多人就是自己身历其境，他大概就是已经把日本的时候已经美化了日本时期。
Today, Japan is Taiwan's third largest trading partner. While relations cooled for a period after Japan broke off official ties with the island in 1972. The two sides generally shared a closeness that has evolved across generations.
即使没有正式的所谓的邦交，我们的往来一年有700多万人在互相交流，台湾到日本的有600万人。
Tokyo quietly backed Taiwan's inclusion in some international organizations, a gesture Taiwanese officials say carries real weight.
所以这个东西我们都非常放在心里面，这是一个非常典范性的这个关系。
From its cityscape to the diplomatic sphere, Japan's influence still permeates the island, decades after its occupation. The weight and emotional legacy of that era, though, are largely lost on the new generation of Taiwanese.
This red brick building in the heart of Taipei was a Japanese market. Now it's a youth hub that is full of art, food, and fashion. Many of the young Taiwanese born decades after Japan's colonization now don't seem to care much about this period in history.
就是日本都很干净，然后东西都蛮好吃的，对。然后他们的步调算是跟台湾差不多。
不会因为它，所以对于那个就是日本有什么特别的看法之类的，那就是一段历史。
But for those who grew up under colonial rule, the past is embedded in personal memory, whether in Taiwan
or in Japan. Taiwanese-born Mr. Masao knows not all share his fondness for Japan. But the inscription he penned was how he remembered both lands, through war, imprisonment, and exile.
兵として日本人として亡くなったんだから、いろいろ意味においてはやはりすごく母国日本でやってもきっと怒らないだろうと思っております。
For Wansei, Mr. Nimoto, his childhood memories of Taiwan became a lifelong devotion. He still recalls the songs he learned and tends to his father's sugarcane, transplanted from his old fields. Growing up with a taste for sweets, he even developed chocolates for confectionery giant Meiji. To him, Taiwan is forever a part of him.
台湾は私の祖父も父もいたところですから、本当に生まれ故郷ですね。だから故郷に帰ってきたっていう感じであります。
The number of Wansei is dwindling. The youngest are already in their 80s. The Ito siblings, who have no children, know their time is running out.
たくさんあったんですよね。我が家に残る台湾関係のそれぞれのところにお届けしたりしてるんだけど、それはやっぱりもう最後がいないから、私たちがこのままほっといて死んだら分かんない人が勝手に捨てちゃう。
Yuri and her brother Susumu went back to Taipei to see his old home for what could be his final chance and pass down some of the remnants of their colonial-era collection.
向こうにしてみればワンセイが返してに来てくれたっていうのがかなり無理しまだしんどいです。
これはいろんなそういう
The descendants of Wansei are the last links to Taiwan's colonial past. Detached, yet connected to an island where we were neither born nor raised. We are keepers of a shared legacy between Japan and Taiwan. That, for now, lives on.